In the book you wrote a piece, and I have to ask you this question.
Yeah.
There's also a note
Yeah.
by John Grinder
Yeah.
that he comments on the fact that maybe some things didn't happen, or a redefinition of how the co-founders saw the field. What is that all about in this book?
So John and I have our differences of opinion, and in some ways I think that's very generative. I know for me, John is one of my greatest sponsors, one of my biggest mentors. I love him dearly, and John and I also both know. I mean, John was one of 9 kids. That you can have your disagreements, and you're still part of the same family. I know that's my opinion, but certainly that's my feeling. I think will actually be surprising. John and I, when I was writing that piece, was sending it to John. He would send corrections back, and we probably went over that about 5 times. So I think I always thought it was kind of interesting that what people think he might be talking about is probably not what he's talking about. It actually, even for me, I think some of the things that he was pointing to, either A, might be that's what seems to be a detail, but that's very important to John. That's key for him. Sometimes it comes down to one word, and we have a different word. Well, that's a good question. I think you're going to have to actually ask John that, because we went back and forth, and I would try to make, I can only make the most accurate representation that I can. I have my way of looking at things and my filters. I think it's less an issue of memory, because all of us have different memories, and I think John would be very tolerant of that. I think that, John has certain principles that for him are very important, and if he sees something that he doesn't think fits with that principle, he's very stern about it. Yeah. And that's what makes him a he's a perfectionist in certain things and an expert. From my side, I have to, I have my own way of looking at things, and I also have a bigger range of things. How do I say? For me, I'm a co-developer of NLP in a way, but I'm not a founder. It's not my baby. Yeah. It's John's baby. I'm much more open in what I do. I'm not trying to do just what a kind of a pure NLP or something. My mission is I want to provide things that are useful for people. I want to create positive change in the world. So in that sense, I may not be as specifically precise about certain things as John would be, because it's his baby. Yeah. And I think it's in those places that there's probably something that he perceives as being really important, and I perceive as like, well, it's not that important, because my goal is not so much to preserve the ultimate integrity of that principle, but to do something that makes a difference for other people. So when I do modeling, I do the NLP version of modeling, but I also will do what John calls analytical modeling. I will interview people, I will observe people, but because it's the nature, John has always kind of made fun of my Strategies of Genius books, because he says, you're modeling dead people, which, I can completely understand that. I mean, and if you tried to experientially model Mozart, you couldn't get his strategy for composition today. You'd get his strategy, I joke, for decomposition. I mean, he's dead. Yeah. But for me, I go, well, yes, but I don't want to, that still is something, I find it fascinating, and if I can pull something out of some letter that he wrote, why not? So for me, that's my looking at it. But John might go, well, that's a waste of time, or that's bullshit. Well, okay, I can, I completely, in my heart, I understand that perspective, but that's not my perspective. Yeah. I don't mind. I think there's actually a lot of really interesting things that I can get and share by expanding beyond just this basic fundamental idea. Yeah. So I think that's kind of where we start to diverge, and, so.
Different maps.
Yeah, we have different maps, but I think why John made that such a stern comment about me is because I want to honor and acknowledge that it's a part that he sees as being very meaningful. But but again, I think when people read that, it'll be interesting if you look at that. I'll bet what they think he's talking about isn't what he's talking about, because, again, John and I, we went over my piece probably 5 times, and I edited some things, and we did, we talked about our differences in perception about some things, and so what I was trying to do was to give my best recollection from my point of view, my filters, my beliefs, and I agree, and I will not argue with John. I am not trying to redefine NLP to be my view. Richard and John are the creators. They have first say. I will, and because it's not my baby, I can step back and say, okay. But I do have my, my own perspective.
And since the early days, you have gone to do many innovations in the field. Which one are you most proud of? The thing that you have developed in the field.
Well, there are many different things that I'm happy to have contributed. I am probably most known for the neurological levels, which came from Gregory Bateson's logical levels, and that's also one of the places where John has another very strong difference of opinion to me. But we actually have, I realize, I think we have a really very fundamental different idea of what a logical level is. So that probably, there's probably some epistemological discussion that needs to happen there. And I'm very happy about that. But there's some of the things, I think like for example, the Walt Disney strategy. The things I'm most happy with are the things that are not so much that I go, I did that. It's more the things that I see people around the world use to make things better. So that actually is my happiness, and pride is less about that I did it. It's more this satisfaction to see that, wow, I was. It's like these interesting things about these early days. We were often doing things, and we didn't really have any idea how much a difference this could make. So like with the Disney strategy, just kind of like put something together, and then you realize people can take that and use it, and they go, this. It's like when people come to you and go, "This changed my life." You go, "Wow, that's cool." That's what it's about. And I think for me, that's always been my guiding. What guides me is not so much the allegiance to a certain map or a model, but the desire to bring positive change in people's lives. And it's like when I was helping my mother in the process of her healing from breast cancer, or just this last year, accompanying my wife. She had just went through her whole process with breast cancer. I don't really care, that it has to be NLP, right? I'm going to use NLP as fully as I can. But if I use NLP to support somebody who then opens choices and starts doing all kinds of other things, then I'm successful, right? Because what I want is a positive outcome for my mother, for my wife, for my client, for the world. So to me, these things are tools in service of that, and so my focus is less on the tool, and even my own tools. If I go to people, if you don't like logical levels, don't use them. It's just a model. It's kind of like not worth fighting about. It's a model. It's not the territory. If you like it, use it. If it helps you, use it. If you don't, there's plenty of other options. So I think that it's a little bit like if you're Steve Jobs and you made the iPhone, well, some people will use it, some people don't like it, they're going to use something else. Well, there's more than one phone, you don't have to use that. I'm glad that people like to use it. That's why I do it, is to try to create something valuable for people. So, I think, the things like the, Disney strategy, the logical levels. Steve Gilligan and I right now are launching this, what we call generative coaching. So generative coaching is sort of bringing he was, there in the beginning, kind of went more to the Erickson way. We got back together and are sort of putting something together that includes NLP, Ericksonian work, but sort of is also extends, right? So it's this idea of 1 + 1 makes 3. And I think for me, I'm proud of that, proud of doing things that can welcome and incorporate other things. I like to bring in many things into my work. To me, that's modeling. It's like what Richard and John did in the beginning, is they brought together Gestalt, hypnosis, family therapy, without trying to say, well, there's the whole logic of family therapy or of hypnosis or whatever. So the idea of modeling is constantly creating something more. I'm also proud of the work I've done, and I was mentioning my mother and my wife just recently, but in the work in health I've done, because I think that nobody was really, I was one of the first, maybe the first, to really focus NLP around health. And in fact, today, for example, here in the Netherlands, we're starting another health certification training. So in some ways, I'm kind of mostly proud of not so much of any particular technique or tool, but of supporting NLP to go in different directions. I mean, I love my work in organizations. I was one of the first to do leadership and modeling leadership and innovation. I mean, the wonderful thing about NLP, for a guy like me, you get NLP and it's like, we say, like, it's like being a kid in a candy store. It's like, I can do some of this and this and this, it's like there's a whole world of candy out there for, to be tasted and chosen. And I think that's what NLP gives people. We have this online encyclopedia that's now 12 years old, but it's like 1,600 pages. And you look at what's in those pages and you realize no other psychology, right? You can there's these other methods, there's Gestalt, there's hypnosis, but there's also, lots of different, there's cognitive psychology, there's lots of different approaches, but nothing covers the range of things that NLP does. You've got spelling on one hand, what does Gestalt therapy have to do with spelling, or any of these things? You've got shamanistic work, but what does that have to do with, and here we got creativity and Disney, and then you got but then you also can deal with traumas, and I mean, it's just, and you can go into a business and help somebody, be a better manager. It's like, what? Yeah. There's nothing else in the world that can give somebody that range of possibilities to make positive difference. I can help somebody learn to spell. I can help somebody, heal a trauma. I can help somebody start a business. I can help somebody, invent a new product. I mean, this is endless possibilities, and that's what I think. That's what NLP is, and that's what was planted in me in those earliest days. And the Origins is endless possibilities, and they're still endless.